Christianity is the System by Sergio De Soto, the official blog. Sergio De Soto. I wrote a long letter called Born Again Patriot. It is the long form of an argument I have been turning over for years. It walks 5 sections, runs over 7,000 words, gets into Constantine and the Reformation, and the 501c3, and the eschatological trajectory the multiplicity of civic religion clusters is structurally heading toward. It is for the reader who wants the full diagnosis. This letter is the short version, the one I should have actually written first. This is a wake-up call with the receipts to prove it's valid. Every passage below is on the page. Just slow down and read it for yourself. Everything we call Judeo-Christianity today is a civic institution. The buildings you attend, the credentials your teachers carry, the framework your pastor inherited from his seminary, the denominational alignment your grandmother handed you, the doctrinal package the worship song reinforces. All of it is the institution speaking. None of it is what the Brit Chadashah describes when it describes the Ecclesia. The text always meant direct access. The institution makes the access depend on it. That is the trap. Direct access was always the point. Jeremiah 31:31-34, the passage that defines the new covenant. Read what it actually says. Behold, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, when I will make a new covenant. I will put my Torah within them, and I will write it on their hearts. And no longer shall each one teach his neighbor and each his brother, saying, Know Yahweh, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest. The Hebrew word for knowing is yada, not cognitive recognition, the kind of knowing a son has of his father. The defining feature of the new covenant in Yirmiyahu's text is the elimination of the knowledge broker class. Every member knows Yahweh directly, from the least to the greatest. If an institution exists because you need it in order to know God, that institution is structurally opposed to Jeremiah 31. The clergy class, the seminary credential, the denominational interpretation, the official catechism. Every structure that mediates yada between you and YHWH is the very thing the new covenant was supposed to dissolve. Now read Exodus 19:6. Before the golden calf, before the Levitical system, before any of the architectural compromises that followed, YHWH described the design. You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. A kingdom of priests, not a kingdom with priests. Every member, a Kohen, direct access for every Israelite to Yahweh. The Levitical system arrived later. It arrived because the people asked for it. Read Exodus 20:18-19. After Sinai, the people told Moses, You speak with us, and we will listen, but let not God speak with us, lest we die. The intermediary structure was not the original design. It entered through fear. It was a concession to a people who could not bear the direct encounter and asked for a buffer. Yahweh gave them the buffer. He never said the buffer was the goal. The whole arc of Scripture from that point forward is the slow return to the original design. That return is the new covenant. Jeremiah 31 is the design specification. Direct access, no middleman class. Yeshua tore the veil. Matthew 27:51. The moment Yeshua, Jesus, died on the cross, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The Greek word is katapetasma, the Hebrew is paroket. This was the veil that separated the Kodesh HaKodashim, Holy of Holies, from everyone except the high priest, once a year with blood. The architectural barrier to the direct presence of Yahweh. Torn from top to bottom, the direction matters. It is not the believer working his way up to Yahweh through the barrier. It is Yahweh tearing the barrier down from his side. This is not incidental narrative detail. It is a structural statement. Any institution that rebuilds that barrier through liturgical gatekeeping, sacramental necessity, clerical mediation, or doctrinal access control is hanging the veil back up. The text is on the page. The veil was torn. Matthew 23, 8-12. Yeshua to his Talmidim, disciples, about religious titles. But you are not to be called Rabbi, for you have one teacher. Call no man your father on earth, for you have one Father who is in heaven. Neither be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Messiah. 3 titles, 3 rejections. Now look at what those 3 titles became. Rabbi became the controlling title of Rabbinic Judaism. Father became the controlling title of Catholicism. Doctor and Reverend became the controlling titles of Protestantism. The 3 traditions that claim Yeshua's authority adopted, in formal institutional form, the 3 titles he explicitly forbade. The irony is load-bearing. John 4, 21-24. The Samaritan woman at the well. She asks Yeshua which mountain to worship on, his or hers. He decommissions the question. Neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. True worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. He is taking geography off the table as a category of access. If location does not determine access to YHWH, neither does institutional affiliation, denominational membership, or buildings dedicated by any human authority. John 14:6. I am the way. Not the church, not the tradition, not the magisterium, not the confession, him. The institutional move across 2,000 years has been to insert the institution between the person and the way. The text does not authorize that move. The text says he is the way. Anyone else who claims to be the way, the broker, the necessary intercessor, is operating against the verse he claims as his commission. Shaul saw the institutional move coming. Galatians 1, 6-9. Shaul, Paul, writing under pressure. Even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to the one we preach to you, let him be anathema. He is not talking about pagans here. He is talking about people with credentials, people from Jerusalem, people with apostolic adjacent authority. He says the anathema applies regardless of pedigree. Source authority does not transfer through institutions. The gospel itself is the test, not the credentials of the man preaching it. Galatians 2:4. He names the institutional infiltration move directly. Because of false brothers secretly brought in, who slipped in to spy out our freedom that we have in Messiah Yeshua, so that they might bring us into slavery. The pattern: embed, observe, regulate. The same pattern from Sinai's golden calf to Nicaea's imperial council to every denominational committee that has ever defined who is in and who is out. Shaul saw it happening in his own lifetime. Colossians 2:16-19. The diagnosis at the structural level. Let no one pass judgment on you in questions of food and drink, or with regard to a festival, or a new moon, or a Sabbath. Let no one disqualify you, insisting on asceticism and worship of angels, going on in detail about visions, puffed up without reason by his sensuous mind, and not holding fast to the head, from whom the whole body, nourished and knit together through its joints and ligaments, grows with a growth that is from God. Read that last phrase again, not holding fast to the head. The Greek word for head is kephale. Shaul is naming exactly the institutional disease the article last week was diagnosing. The institution has replaced kephale. People are connected to the institution instead of to Messiah directly. The institution then claims the power to katabrabeo, to declare who is in and who is out, who has access and who does not. Only the head can disqualify. When an institution claims that power, it has made itself the head. And Shaul names that move as the disease. 1 Corinthians 3, 4-7. He calls denominational tribalism by its name. When one says, I follow Paul, and another, I follow Apollos, are you not being merely human? What then is Apollos? What is Paul? Servants through whom you believed. The Greek word for merely human in verse 4 is the same word he uses in verse 3 for sarkikos. Shaul is identifying denominational alignment as a flesh-level move, tribalism dressed as theology, the oldest heresy in the ecclesia. Now read 1 Timothy 4:1-3 and ask honestly which institution he is describing. The Spirit explicitly says that in later times some will depart from the faith by devoting themselves to deceitful spirits and teachings of demons, through the insincerity of liars whose consciences are seared, who forbid marriage and require abstinence from foods that God created. Mandatory celibacy. Dietary law imposed by human institution. He names both. The vehicle of departure from the faith is not overt paganism. It is religious structure with demonic epistemology underneath. That verse was written before Constantine, before the formalization of the priesthood as a celibate class, before the dietary regulations the institutional church imposed across centuries. Shaul saw the structural arc and named it. Revelation calls it out. Revelation 17-18. Whatever else Babylon the Great is, the text describes a system, economic, political, and religious. It has made all nations drink the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality. 17:2. The merchants of the earth grow rich from her. 18:3. The kings of the earth align with her. 17:2. The religious authorities are on the same arrangement. One system doing three things at once. Revelation 18:4. Come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plagues. Not come out of the world, come out of her. The people being called out are already inside something. They are inside the system. The text addresses them as my people, which means they belong to YHWH, and yet they are inside the very system the next verses describe as judged. If you are a believer reading this, and you are inside an institutional civic religion arrangement, Revelation 18:4 is addressed to you. The command is, come out. Revelation 2:6 and 2:15, the Nicolaitans. Twice in two letters, Yeshua says he hates what they do. The early sources identify the Nicolaitans with the creation of a clergy-laity divide. The etymology, Nikao, conquer, plus Laos, people, gives the diagnosis in two Greek words: a class that conquers the people, a class that rules over the assembly rather than serving it. Whether the etymology holds historically or not, the pattern is consistent across every institutional iteration. A class emerges, gets credentialed, gets paid, gets institutional protection, and ends up ruling the assembly was supposed to be a kingdom of priests in. Yeshua hates it, twice. Revelation 3:17. Laodicea, the most institutionally established, most prosperous, most financially secure congregation in the 7 letters. Read what he says about them. For you say, I am rich, I have prospered, and I need nothing, not realizing that you are wretched, pitiable, poor, blind, and naked. Institutional success as spiritual camouflage. The congregation that does not need anything is the one Yeshua names as bankrupt. The opposite of institutional success is what he commends in the other letters. The poor church at Smyrna is the rich one. The persecuted church at Philadelphia is the one with the open door. The institutional success of Laodicea is the disease. The wake-up. Ephesians 6:12. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness. The Greek words are archai, exousiai, kosmokratoras, world rulers, authorities, the structural powers behind structural systems. The kosmokratoras do not need to destroy covenant community. 3 centuries of Roman persecution failed to destroy the ecclesia. The believers kept gathering in houses, kept refusing the incense, kept dying for the name. What worked was Constantine. He did not crush the ecclesia, he absorbed it, gave it buildings, gave it titles, gave it imperial legitimacy, gave it a seat at the power table. The Cosmocratoras did not fight the community of Messiah, they hired it. The institution that resulted is the institution we have all inherited, and the structural pattern has not changed. The buildings change, the legal vessels change. The 501c3 replaces the imperial chapel. The celebrity pastor replaces the bishop. The denominational confession replaces the imperial creed. The mechanism is identical. Jeremiah 31 is still waiting to be fully inhabited. A kingdom of priests with no broker class, no knowledge gatekeepers, every member in direct covenant relationship with YHWH. That community has never fully existed at institutional scale, which is exactly what you would expect if the Cosmocratoras have any say in it. The wake-up call is not to leave Yeshua. The wake-up call is to leave the system that has been claiming to mediate him to you. He never asked for the mediation. The text says he tore the veil. Direct access was always the point. This is a lot to sit with. If you skimmed, scroll back. The diagnostic only lands when the scripture is on the page in front of you. Read this article again. Read it in sessions if you have to. The system you have been inside was built by men who counted on you not reading slowly enough to catch them. Selah. What institution have you been treating as the way? Whose voice have you been treating as the necessary interpreter of the text? If Revelation 18:4 is addressed to you, what does coming out look like for you this week? What would change about your week if you took Jeremiah 31:34 seriously? They shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest. May the shalom of our Abba meet you in the direct address. Shalom v'shalva. Your brother in the way, Sergio.